All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Orbit. Today I have Elliott Cost in New York, New York. How you doing today, Elliott?
Pretty good, yeah. Yeah. How about yourself?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Um, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. So, I've been making these sort of like community websites for the last year or so, and the first one was called Gossips Cafe, um, and that's pretty much kind of like the website that emulates like a cafe in real life. So there's set hours that you can visit. The hours are a little different right now because more people are online. Um, and yeah, we wanted to accommodate that. But yeah, people just log on and they kind of check in with you can post messages to it. Um, you can also post links into this like sort of chat called it's kind of like a coffee break. And then yeah, I just added some new features recently. There's a light switch that when you like switch it on or off, it like changes for everybody. Um, so yeah, you can play around with that. And then yeah, it has hours. So like once the day is done, then it closes up, and then you can post notes to the cafe. Um, so that was kind of the first like community website that I worked on. And
Where,
then
where
the
did you
more,
get
oh yeah, sure.
where did you get the idea for making community websites? And what would you say is like the difference between that and like Twitter?
Yeah. So I suppose it's kind of been a dream of mine for a long time, like since I was a kid. Um, I didn't really like, I was online as a kid, but I wasn't like necessarily on like, like early social media websites, like MySpace and such. Yeah, I kind of just like watch my friends be on those platforms. But yeah, I was maybe more on like Tumblr and those kind of platforms early on, and just interested in like making websites using those platforms, which in the early days of Tumblr, as you know, like you could like, change the CSS and HTML on a Tumblr blog, which was really fascinating to me. But I think like, yeah, those kind of early interactions with like HTML and CSS and like yeah platforms like Tumblr really like has inspired me to make my own sort of versions of those. Yeah.
When you started, did you start with Tumblr? Were you ever a GeoCities guy or
Yeah, I kind of missed the whole boat on GeoCities. But yeah, I've definitely been, like there's a lot of great archives of GeoCity websites now. And I've definitely like looked back into those. And then, there's like NeoCities, which is really
right?
cool to see. Yeah, so yeah, I love the idea of those sites, but I never really was necessarily part of it, other than maybe like Tumblr, and then just kind of like making static HTML websites.
From
Yeah.
there? What year were you starting out on Tumblr and kind of getting into that?
Yeah, it was probably like, I mean, I think I was there like in the early days. I mean, definitely in like high school or maybe even earlier than that. Yeah. Were you on
Yeah.
there as well?
Um, I I had a kind of strict upbringing, so I didn't get to do a lot of internet stuff until afterwards. So I missed a lot of like the early Tumblr stuff.
Okay.
But what year around was that?
Um, yeah, I'm not sure exactly when I like first created my Tumblr. I could go back
Yeah.
and look through there, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure what year it was, but yeah, I think I was there in the early days. Yeah.
And from there, did you get into computers? I saw you are a designer, a web designer. How did you get into that field?
Yeah, so I went to art school in California, at California College of the Arts, and there I was actually like very much like offline because yeah, like throughout childhood and my upbringing, I had been just kind of like on the computer a lot, and wanted to kind of get away from that a bit. So yeah, through college, I was sort of just like making paintings and like exploring other creative outlets. And then after college, I kind of got back into making websites. And yeah, the first one after college was like this. It was actually kind of related to the maybe it was like a precursor to the cafe. It was called Gossip's Web, and at that time I was making like art spaces. I had a art space in my apartment that I was running in San Francisco at the time, and I kind of wanted to just like organize a list of like project spaces around the world. Um, and I saw that they were kind of popping up in people's apartments, and then they would have like a website associated with it and post like documentation of the shows, etc. So I created just like a directory of that, and it's still up actually. It's called Gossip's Web. Um, yeah, so that was like kind of the first website that like really got me excited again about the web. And then at the time I was living with another designer, Laurel Schwolst. And yeah, since that point of living together, we've become really good friends, and I really admire her work. And I think it's been a huge influence on my work right now. But yeah, I remember she saw that Gossip's website, this directory, and was like really inspired by it, and like was like, you should keep on working on websites like that. So
Yeah, I think
yeah.
did she interview you for that? I think I saw someone
um
interview you about Gossip's Web.
yeah, we conducted like an interview in her kitchen, I think last year, with another like writer and designer, Meg Miller, who writes the Arena blog. um, so yeah, they were living together at the time, and we kind of like did an interview for the Arena blog together.
So with all this art, these art projects that you're making, do you have like a day job or is it all this?
Yeah, well, right now I'm kind of trying to figure that out. I'm sort of in between things, but I do. So I guess for the last 2 years, I was working for this publication that Kickstarter runs called the Creative Independent, and Laurel actually did like the visual design of that. Um, and yeah, like worked on the site and launched it. And then she hired me, and I just kind of did development work and worked on their newsletter for a long time. Um, and yeah, just recently I've kind of been like stepping away from that a little bit, but I still work for them a little bit. So yeah, it's mostly just like freelance work at this point. Yeah.
The design of the Creative Independent is very specific. It's almost
Right.
old school. How would you
Mhm.
describe it?
Yeah, I think I don't want to speak for Laurel, but I think
Yeah.
the intention with that site, I mean, when it launched, it was like publishing one thing a day. So there would be an interview with an artist or um, another, like creative person in a field daily, and that would be sent as an email, and also published on the site. So in a way, it was trying to emulate like a calendar. And I think the kind of like block aesthetic of like, say, the archive page um, kind of has that built into it, of like one block a day. And then I know like also like the pixel logo, like it being a spiral, is sort of trying to emulate like the creative process and like spiraling around, or just spiraling back on something. Um, I feel like that's a common thing that artists and creatives do in their process. So yeah, that's kind of where the design came from.
When you're making your stuff,
Mhm.
how do you how do you go about it in terms of what you're going for, in terms of what the project does, how it looks from
Mhm.
beginning to end?
Um, I think that's a good question. I think I'm still like working out a process for that, and I think it's different because in the last year I've been working on maybe very different websites that are more about like community and like users um, filling in the site in a way. And I've thought of the process of like creating a website um, in a different way. Instead of like filling in the whole website to begin with, it's like I'm maybe making like a empty vessel. Um, and so I'm just like creating this vessel and then like letting the users like fill it in. I think that's kind of what happened with Specialfish, which was really interesting to see. Like, I was developing it on my local computer and it was pretty much like useless in a way. Like that homepage, like, is definitely, it wasn't what it was now, or, is now. But then once it was launched, then like, users started coming to it and filling in um, that homepage. And now it's like, like this visual um, piece that makes up this larger like kind of fish or something. um
How
which yeah.
Yeah, how did you come up with the idea for Special Fish? How did that start?
um yeah, so as I said, I've had this dream of like making community websites for a long time, um or just like kind of emulating community websites that I was on as a kid. So I think that's kind of like where the maybe inspiration came from. But there's a few websites that it definitely like pulls from or references directly, like this website. I don't know if you were familiar with Muxtape, this site.
I saw you
I think it
mention that. I've
launched.
never been there.
Yeah, so there was this site that was kind of like the first like mixtape on the web. Um, and the design of that site was like really interesting in how the homepage, there was no like search or anything. There was just a random collection of like these mux tapes or mixtapes, and that was the only way of like exploring or like finding users on the site. And it kind of used a similar like approach of like just creating this like um, uh, almost like brick layer format to the site, and every user had a different color, basically. So I definitely drew from that site a lot in constructing the homepage. Um, and then I suppose also um, yeah, like Laurel's work has also been like a huge influence on mine. So, um, and also I can see how like the creative independent and that visual design has like worked itself into Special Fish as well. Yeah.
How many users does it have today?
It has a little over 600 right now. Yeah, so it's fairly small, but growing each day, I guess. Yeah.
And how many people are working on it? Is it only you?
Um, yeah, it's only me right now. Yeah. There's a few people that have added um, little like Easter eggs and like additions to it. Um, yeah, my friend John, who has a really interesting web presence and website as well, and makes amazing work. Added this like music player to the site recently, and it's like sort of an Easter egg where you like press the filters in a certain order and then you can like play the profiles in the homepage. as if
Oh
it was
yeah.
like this music box. Yeah, I posted on Twitter a little like demo of that, but yeah, maybe we can share that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's I find that I spend my time on special.fish just going through each profile and then clicking the links that they share because I almost always find something cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. I really do feel like, I mean, the idea as well is like I love like profiles on social media websites. I think that's like the most the part of art the part of social media websites that you can actually like customize the most, and they're often just kind of like an afterthought. But I think special fish is like focused around the profile as being like the centerpiece of it. And also I'm just like I love like lists and like directories, and like text only sites. So I don't know if I've debated a lot about like whether adding images would be um, a good step, but I think it's nice to just have it text only and makes it simple for me as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
The kind of like minimal text only uh aesthetic, it's not just unique to you. I don't feel like there's almost a community of people on the internet that are in your style community. Have you noticed
yeah,
this?
yeah, definitely. It has been cool to see sort of people like collecting there. I think it definitely like as it is now has sort of used Twitter as like a jumping off point, of like at least people like discovering it through Twitter. Um, but yeah, it has been interesting seeing like there's like people on there that I would never find on Twitter, um, but they've collected around special fish in this way. And yeah, I never really intended like the sort of like profile part. Of that being like maybe a centerpiece of the profile. I was almost intending it to be more about the list, but people really went wild with the like little description, like bio part,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And I love kind of just the idea that you might build something and then people use it in like a different way that you never intended. And I think that's great. Like, I think that's sort of where I don't know, um, where like design is the most exciting, when the users have like some control over the process. Yeah.
Do you have any plans for more projects? You create so much that I just imagine that there might
Thanks.
be more in the works.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think I'm always sort of like I'm always thinking about websites. So I think there's definitely um, going to be other sites on the horizon, especially now, um, being inside and like
Yeah.
being online all the time. Yeah, I'm excited to see what's next. But yeah, I don't know. Right now, I kind of want to go back, and I've been working a little bit this week on just going back over like Gossips, Cafe, and Special Fish, and adding little things to it, and yeah, like adding little features to it. Like Specialfish still doesn't have a password reset, so I have to like do that manually for people. So yeah, need to build those little maintenance things out. Um, but yeah, project wise, I don't know. I'm also teaching right now, and I think that's been really like influential on my own practice. And it's been giving me some good ideas about like how um yeah, like what kind of websites I want to be making next.
Do you like have an idea of what you want the internet to be more like in the next 5, 10 years?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I thought about this a bit. Like, I think right now we are seeing, I mean, it's really exciting because I think we're seeing a resurgence of interest in like making personal websites and um, yeah, just kind of like making websites that are not conventional. Um, and I think that's really exciting to see. And also, like as you were saying, like there is this community that's formed around like on the web and especially on Twitter, I think, um, around these personal websites. And I would just be excited to see that sort of grow. I mean, I know like platforms like yeah, Facebook and Twitter, like they're going to continue to like be probably the main avenue. Um, but yeah, I've been kind of thinking about it as like, well, you know, these like big social media websites, like I mean, they're very problematic, but they're going to exist probably into the near future at least. So yeah, just using them for what they can be used for. And I kind of like I like to think about them as like you know these almost like freeways, and like we just need more websites that are like little side streets or like exits off of that. That are quieter places that just you know a handful of people can like hang out in and enjoy like a quiet space because there's like I mean like post something on Twitter like I have this experience all the time and that's why I constantly like quit it and then I'll come back to it but like yeah, I'll post something and it'll just like, or like a website or a link. And because it doesn't have like, you know, an image attached to it, it's just automatically lost in the feed. Um, and that makes me think of it as kind of like this freeway where it's like, you can't like stop someone that's like, you know, speeding by at like 70 miles per hour
Right.
or whatever. I'm like, hey, look at my website or whatever.
I think it's a
But
good
yeah,
analogy because I would say
yeah,
like the sites that I find on Special Fish are small towns in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's nice to just kind of like slowly browse a website in that way. And like, yeah, people are using it like as a blogging platform, which is really cool to see. A friend like recently described it as um, like a social media website of like RTF documents or like, yeah, like text edit documents, which is um, really like just an interesting idea in itself. And yeah, it wasn't its like original intention at all, but like I really like that description. Um, yeah, if like text edit had like a social media feature or
Right.
something. Yeah.
As an artist, do you find that working with computers affects your art and vice versa? Like, what is the relationship between how you make things on computers and how you make other kinds of art?
That's a really good question. I think I don't know if I have a good answer because I've been just making work online for like the last 2 or 3 years. So I don't even really know like what if I was to make something physical, like what that would look like. I mean, it's an interesting like thought experiment. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess I was in Japan last summer, actually with Laurel, and we did like a little residency at our friend's um, project space out there in Osaka, and we did make some physical work there. Yeah, it was this show called Green People, and we made it with the person that runs the space, Cosma, and we all kind of just like were excited about the idea of, or we were excited about the color green. We're like, we all love the color green, and we all have like different shades of green that we're into. Like I'm more into a lime green, and like Laurel's more into a forest green. So we kind of just collaborated over that simple like idea. So I think like if I like were to make physical work, like it would be something like that. I don't think that really answers your question, but
Yeah, I guess it's kind of all about your process, just
yeah.
because it ends up. When I look at all of your work, it seems to have this um, thematic continuity throughout it. Like, for example, the Scobie is really interesting to me because it is unlike any other website that I've been to,
Yeah.
where you like kind of upload to. It's an amorphous social media platform.
Mm.
They abandon the traditional structure. And I think what's interesting is that like living in Seattle, there is a set structure of how people want to build things. And the things that you're making are unconventional and kind of reject these structures.
Mm. Yeah. 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 That Project Scobie was, uh, I don't even, I guess it came out all like out of, um, like trying to make like, arena into maybe like how like Tumblr 1.0 was, where you
Mm-hmm.
could like, customize HTML and CSS and stuff like that, and make it more of like a hosting platform, which I know is not the intention of Arena, but yeah, yeah, I remember like Cab, who runs Arena, like reached out about it, and he was really excited about it. So um, I think they're like always open to like weird experiments with their API. But yeah, I am kind of interested in like, I don't know if this is the best way of describing it, but like breaking like things, like if possible, or like conventions. And I kind of wish that was happening a little bit more on the web, especially not so much in like development, although that could happen more, but like more in design. Yeah, I feel
And
like there's set conventions to how people design on the web right now that don't necessarily have to be that way.
I agree. And it's
Yeah,
exciting to like see people in your community experimenting with that.
yeah.
I've been trying to like find the source of like where do these people congregate, and it's kind of special.fish, but friends have also been pointing me towards the School for Poetic Computation.
Hmm.
Like, do you have any relationship or familiar with their mission?
Yeah, I don't really know them that well, but I have been to the school a few times, and um, yeah, um, Taeyun, who kind of is runs it, has been doing really interesting work. Yeah, his like own personal work is really beautiful, and yeah, also his work with the school is inspiring. So yeah, I think that is part of that community. Um, it's interesting how there's like, I think especially in New York, there's like a lot of people working in tech and a lot of people um, working in tech that are also interested in art. And I think those communities like sometimes don't overlap a little bit, or as much as they could, unfortunately. It is actually interesting during this like kind of crisis, to see like how people, they're more online and they're like maybe like reaching out a bit more, um, and like you know crossing these communities. Um, and yeah, I don't know where like Specialfish or like the community there really like fits into that. It has been really interesting to see, like I was just noticing there was like a ton of people signing up like in Europe and such, early on, and that was really wild because I didn't even know that I had like followers there or how they were coming across it. yeah, so yeah, I'm kind of just curious to see like um yeah, how this crisis affects um like tech
Yeah,
art communities.
in our yeah, and spending more time online.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Uh, to kind of wrap up, if anyone wanted to kind of get started into making the kind of things that you like to make, where do you draw your uh, inspiration, like as far
Mhm.
as people or sites that you follow? And also,
Hmm.
what tools are you using?
Oh, good questions. Yeah, so let's see. I think for like drawing inspiration, I'm always like, and I refer my like students as well to this, like, archive.org, like the Wayback Machine, like
Mhm.
has been like a huge inspiration. Um, I think there's a lot of like websites that people just don't really know that they ever existed, and have been lost, because either they were like bought out or like sold out or whatever, and the design, and the whole site changed substantially, like you were mentioning, like GeoCities. um I know, like, yeah, even like that website Delicious was really interesting back in the
Oh
day, like
yeah,
that bookmarking website. I know like Arena is really inspired by that. um but yeah, any of those kind of sites. Yeah, I was really influenced by Instagram, like by Mux Tape. And yeah, that designer's work. Oh, I think yeah, his name is like Justin um Ouellette. He made that. Yeah, let's see. Um, and then tools that I've been using. Um, I guess to build sites. I guess I use pretty conventional like
yeah.
text editors, like like VS Code. um, is my main text editor right now, or code editor. And then yeah, I use GitHub a lot for just like keeping code online and such. Like all of Specialfish, the code at least is there. Um, but I don't know, I would love to like move away from those tools. I feel like GitHub is kind of like controlling the static site maybe revolution right now, or like
Mhm.
where people host everything, which is a little um, worrisome maybe. I don't know. But yeah, and then I guess for hosting, yeah, I've been using like DigitalOcean.
Right, the big.
um yeah, I'm trying to think of like some cooler tools that I wish I used more tools that were like made by my friends or something.
I think the thing I'm interested in is you use HTML probably more than most people. As
That's
far
true,
as
yeah.
just coding, I see it on Twitter a lot. I think if somebody was like, "Yo, HTML energy," and I'm like, "I like this."
Yeah, so that's a project that Laurel and I um have been working on, and it's basically, yeah, just like getting people excited about like the raw uh, energy or power behind a website, which I feel like at its core is like HTML, um, maybe a little bit of CSS, but yeah, getting back to that, just like raw HTML, is kind of inspiring. And yeah, so I guess that would be a fundamental tool, HTML, maybe a little CSS, JavaScript there, here and there, but yeah, we're running a podcast through that project. So we released like our third episode, or maybe our fourth recently. Yeah, so we just interview people about their websites and ask them like what their energy is in one word. um, yeah, if you had to choose an energy, what would you choose?
Nice.
like in one word. Yeah. Or do you have any?
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I were to choose an energy, I
Yeah.
first thing that I would choose is like chaos energy.
Oh wow.
Like
Chaos is a good one.
all of my project, I feel like I try to make I have a huge list of web development projects that I want to work on, and I
Hmm.
work on it until I hate it, or until I hit a wall, and then I publish it. And
Hmm.
I've been doing that so much, just to try to create as many things as possible. And
Hmm.
I would say that's the energy that I'm going for.
Hmm.
That if someone looked at my stuff, they'd be like, "Oh, like he's very creative, even if he's like still learning."
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good approach actually. Like I think I used to be really bad at just like finishing projects. I mean I still am, but like I think just like getting past that and being like, even if it's not like final like finished and there's like bugs in it, like that's totally okay. Um and yeah, that's something like Laurel has kind of like taught me over the years, is like her part of her philosophy is like, having like a bug sit around on a website is like perfectly okay and maybe like nice to see, and sort of beautiful. So yeah, I think that's like a really good approach, just kind of like getting things out there, chaotic
Yeah.
publishing. But also for this moment it seems appropriate.
um, I remember seeing a tweet on Twitter. It was one of those a developer in New York saying, "I'm in a cafe and I'm looking over my shoulder and there's someone coding in just HTML, no frameworks."
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
I think they were saying they're writing HTML like a psychopath.
Right.
And I was thinking, I was like, was that Elliott?
Wow, totally could have been me. Yeah. um, Definitely. Yeah, I think I do sort of have also a chaotic like energy or presence, maybe. Um, uh, or I don't know. What do you think? I mean,
Um,
online at least.
yeah, online, I would say it feels the work itself feels less chaotic and more organic, because like there is a
Yeah.
chaos to it, but it follows an idea.
Hmm.
And I think that's the most exciting thing for me to see throughout
Hmm.
all of it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on and
Yeah, of
letting me
course. That
pick
was
your brain
nice.
a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Love to debrief with you for a little after the episode,
Sure.
but thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Take it easy.
Yeah.